Hey everyone, Dan here. We are just before market close on Friday, July 23rd. We're going to take a look at AMC. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice. Do your own due diligence, put in the work, and come to your own conclusions and base your decisions on that. Alright, so just a quick look at the chart here. We're mostly going to talk about the short interest and the dark pools today with AMC, but I did want to share a couple of interesting things. So AMC is continuing to sort of build itself on these blue and yellow areas. The yellow is a retracement from previous highs, and then the blue areas are areas of consistent supply and demand that we've seen in AMC. So continuing to collect around those areas and bounce off of them like we see here and grab support down here. The white areas I just put in, those are going to be the targets that I'm going to be looking for if we can continue to bounce off of this like 34-74 zone, and that would be an extension levels to the upside. So those would be the first sort of like price targets to the upside that I'm going to be looking at. So I just wanted to share that, and you can screenshot the chart if it's helpful in any way. But let's flip over to the data, because I know a lot of folks are not interested in the charts with this one. So Ortex here, if we flip over to their short interest, they're reporting a change today so far of a little over 1.5%, bringing the current short interest percentage of the free float to 14.74%. And so take that for what you will. But the utilization is still remarkably high, and I think that that's probably going to play a bit of an element or a role in the dark pool info that we're going to go through today. So utilization over 88% right now, and if you're uncertain of what that means, if it were to get to 100%, that means that all of the shares available to borrow or lend at a lending program have in fact been lent. So this is basically saying that has nearly occurred with the current situation with AMC. So let's go through some of the dark pool data. So dark pools are sort of like common nomenclature these days. What the exchange actually refers to them as is ATS, Alternative Trading Systems. You see that here, Alternative Trading Systems. And there's a couple of variants. There's Alternative Trading Systems and non-Alternative Trading Systems, just to make things as making you go through as many layers as possible to try to get to any resemblance of the truth. But I thought we would dig through sort of where AMC lies in some of this data today. So if you go here, you can obviously see the URL there. If you pop that puppy in, you can dig through this yourself, obviously. And go to the OTC data here. I already have pulled that up. I should probably show you this, because it does this funny thing. It basically says, you can read this, but it's basically saying, we don't guarantee that any of this is correct. This is provided to us in good faith. And so, take this for what you will, but we can't verify that any of it is correct or accurate. So starting off on that foot, basically. But basically here we see the ATS issue data. So here we're looking at the alternative trading systems and the data that they have on ticker symbols by week. So if we come in here and look for AMC, obviously that's not AMC, but we can see why it comes up. Now it's also broken out into these different categories, and so just for good measure, we can go through and sort of see if AMC is coming up in any of these. Now we can also flip the dates, and we can go back a bit in history and see when's the last time AMC might have shown up. Here's one. I don't know if this is definitely the most recent, but AMC here we see in a dark pool, or in a collection of dark pools. The reported data was that on the week of April 19th, which was then updated on this site on 5/24. So you see this incredible lag in the data. So by the time it gets to the public or to the retail user, it is very far out of date. Obviously, that kind of goes to the sense of why dark pools exist. They're not meant to sort of influence the public exchange. I have my own opinions on whether or not that even makes sense, but we won't get into that in this video. But we see here that there were a total of nearly 8 million shares traded in that week, a total of over 54,000 trades, and the details of which, if you pop these open, basically just breaks it down by, who's doing what and by how many shares, and then the number of trades that they're executing. I can't seem to find, though maybe somebody knows where you do capture this, if it is provided anywhere, the actual buy or sell. Like this is just shares and the number of trades and the dates and then the description. But as for this was bought and this was sold, I guess there's, both sides of that equation. But it would be more interesting to see, this entity or on this ATS, there were this many shares that were sold, there were this many that were purchased, unless the way that it's handled on here, they always have to equal each other, which I guess that could kind of make sense as well. I'm just looking for if there is still some sort of obvious missing data, that would be nice to have. But I guess now that I'm talking myself through it, it probably makes sense that if there were this many shares, that just means that many were sold and that there were that many that were able to be bought as well, and so that happened. So we see that there. Now that's not specifically what I want to look at, because basically this is saying for the most recent week that's available for AMC, we don't find anything, okay? So let's go a little bit further into this. Now, in case you're wondering what it is that they were breaking out there, NMS Tier 1, Tier 2, and then the OTC, they give a description here, including the S&P 500, Russell 1000, and selected exchange-traded products, Tier 2. So you just kind of have to go through and see where your ticker is popping up, to be honest. Now, getting into things a bit further. So this is from CBOE, and they're saying here there's been a substantial increase in the amount of trading on TRFs since the spike in market volatility in March 2020, as illustrated below. And then in May, this activity averaged near 42%, and the trend continued in June. Okay, so we keep going with what they're providing here. On a post-trade basis, data for TRF activity is published by FINRA. That's what we were just looking at. This reporting is aggregated by symbol and market participant and identifier. That's also what we were just looking at. FINRA classifies the volume into two broad categories, ATS and non-ATS OTC. So we were just looking at the ATS just a moment ago. Data generally shows the majority of trading is on non-ATS category, which comes from broker-dealers that execute a client order away from the public markets. Only about 11 to 12% of market volume is executed on ATSs, meaning this is not driving the recent rise in TRF trading. Figure 2 below demonstrates that there have been very little change in ATS market share, and that non-ATS volumes constitute a larger portion of trades reported on TRFs. Non-ATS volume has grown from around 25% at the start of the year to nearly 35% in May. So the thing that I think folks usually get sort of fixated on is dark pool is sort of this, public perception, this words that we use to describe it. The exchanges describe it as ATS. So that's as far as I think a lot of folks get. Okay, it's on this alternative trading system, and they look there. This is basically saying, nah, that's only 11 or 12%. Most of this is happening on non-ATS, but is still in a dark pool. Much of the non-ATS volume flow executed off exchanges traded in a principal capacity, meaning the contraparty is a single firm, which differs from the multilateral nature of an ATS or a public exchange. So that's sort of like why I was wondering about the buy and share volume, like if they did have to sort of match on these ATSs, because here they're sort of talking about this multilateral nature, much like we see on the public market. And just because there's always a buyer and a seller doesn't mean that the price moves laterally, right? That it does everything except that. So that's kind of why I was wondering what that is, but I can, look more into that on my own after this. Although the FINRA data does not provide a description of the type of non-ATS trading center, many of them execute retail orders or not held orders, typically using indications of interest to attract order flow. Single dealer platforms enhance liquidity providers' central risk books. Much of this order flow is not directly accessible for all market participants. All right, so then they break it down here. I mean, again, certainly you can go through and read the rest of this on your own. I don't want to just narrate what this is. They do end with, or part of their closing here is this interesting paragraph. They have, on the whole, having more destinations to trade at is generally a healthy sign for the market. I read that and nearly rolled my eyes out of my head because I was rolling them so hard. But then the next statement is more competition among marketplaces improves customer experience. However, increased transparency is important for marketplaces in order to foster a competitive landscape. So there, I much more agree with what they're saying. So having read this, I think it's important to look for the non-ATS situation. And luckily, we have this. Now we have it with the same wild caveats as we have the ATS data of, hey, this is reported to us. We can't really verify if it's correct. Sometimes we check it, but that's kind of all that they say. And don't use this to make any decisions. So take that for what you will. Now on this one, here you see we're in the OTC non-ATS issue data. We can break this out by monthly. So it's a little bit more handy, I think, just because there's, flipping through week by week by week by week is a lot. And so here we toss in AMC. We say for the month of May 2021, we see that there were now I'll just give you a moment to look at this number to, so that you understand what you're seeing. You're seeing a 1,696,619,694 total shares that were completed by way of over 9.5 million total trades. And this was last updated on July 13th, like you see there. Now we click in here. We can see our data again. You see our old friends at Robinhood here. They're coming in strong. You see our better friends at Citadel right here coming in very nicely. So, this to me is more interesting and more indicative of what is actually happening. And all of this share volume that is occurring over the course of a month, right, is an insane amount versus what's being shown on the public market. So we come over here, we flip this to the daily, and we look even at these really big days. There was almost 500 million on these days, 757 million. So, those are wild, wild days. Now that we're getting sort of some distance from there, now we're seeing, still 100 plus million, but definitely not, more than 500 million, 750 million, that sort of a thing. Now, granted, those are in a day. So this volume happening totally away from that. And, then theoretically not influencing the price in any way, shape, or form. So the extent to which there are huge buys being executed here, that's why I was wondering about seeing the buy and sell, because I don't suspect, though, again, this is where I need to look into it more, and if folks know this information, feel free to put it in the comments below. I don't know how this interacts with pricing at all. I don't know if these are just sold in big blocks. There is some blocks data that I didn't have time to go through. You see that here and here. But, that's sort of the question to me. Could you buy up almost 1.7 billion shares in a month and then just dump them onto the open market? Because you would be holding them, right? And then your buy volume wouldn't be influencing that at all, but your sell volume, because you choose to sell it on the open market, then that would. So then do you even really need the short sell, or do you need to short sell as much Potentially not. Strong potentially not. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, where was this? Was this here maybe? No. There is this area where you can look at just sort of who's doing what. Oh, here you can see the insane numbers of total shares that are coming through non-ATS. We look here. We're going to get some baby crying here, so apologies. But look at, all right, I'll have to go back and find it. We can look at it in a different video, but I was looking somewhere at, oh, here it is. Citadel. So Citadel, you can see here, 1.38 billion, so 1,381,358,960 total shares that they were trading on tier 1, and this is in a week. On tier 2, we don't find them at all, or on the OTCE. So from a monthly perspective, our buddies at Citadel coming in at 25,251,561,548 shares in the month of May that are reported. And what it is that they're doing with them, who knows? What it is exactly that they are, I don't know. I don't see any more detail here, but definitely interesting data to dig through, and I would suggest, you go and take a look for yourself if you are intrigued. Now, the other thing that I noticed that I wanted to quickly share, I think that this is just wrong data, but because I wanted to look up the free float as it pertained to, how that interacted with the data that we see from May. So, for example, if we look here at this almost 1.7 billion shares traded in the month, I wanted to see, remind myself what the float of AMC was. And, I recall it being, nearly 500 million. But I did see on MarketBeat, and again, this could just be wrong data that they're reporting on MarketBeat. They have outstanding shares of 450 million, but a float size of 499 million, which I thought to myself then, that's not possible, right? I flipped over, our buddies at Investopedia, can float be higher than the shares outstanding? No, of course not. And I went to Yahoo, checked it out. This is why I think it might just be wrong data on MarketBeat, but maybe something else to look into in the future. But 513 million shares outstanding, Yahoo says, with a float of 448 million. So, that would at least make sense. But I just wanted to point that out as I was digging through data. And I just, like I said, I organically landed there because I wondered what the free float was, because I saw that the monthly volume or monthly total shares was such. All right. Well, I hope that you found the video interesting. I definitely welcome folks to go and dig through all this stuff on their own. There's a bunch of, it's just interesting how much folks are being able to learn and have access to certain things through this entire crazy AMC process. But I hope you have a nice weekend, and I hope you had a good trading week, and I will see you in the next video.